Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, sold out of Voice of Radio. So today, with Journey Together on the horizon, we need to ask the question, hey, those trainers Pokemon, are they any good? There are 4 trainers that are getting Pokemon in Journey Together. They are, of course, the 4 on the booster pack artwork. We've got Lily, we've got Iono, we've got N, and we've got Hop. So the question is, are any of them any good? Are we likely to be playing with any of them? Or are we going to be leaving them behind? Well, that's where things get a little bit awkward. So let's start off with what is the best among them. It's Lily. But it's not Lily. It's Lily's Clefairy. Lily's Clefairy, absolutely legit, very good card right now, seeing a really rather significant amount of play. But we're not talking about Lily decks. Lily decks are not really where we're going here. There are a couple of different ways we're playing Lily's Clefairy. Firstly, we're playing it in Gardevoir, because look, it's a really good attacker. Plus, and this is maybe the main reason here, it's got an ability that makes Dragon Pokemon weak to Psychic. And right now, over in Japan, the best deck, and I think at this stage we can say pretty much hands down the best deck, is Dragapult. Dragapult is crushing. So, it's basically just a really, really, really good Dragapult counter. And yeah, we really like the attack here. Does 20 damage for each bench Pokemon, yours and your opponent's. That's clearly brilliant, plus 20 damage base to boot. But this is a counter for Dragapult. It also sees play in that deck I've been showing you lately, where it's basically Lily's Clefairy, and then we end up with 2 different Ogerpon. We've got Teal Mask Ogerpon to accelerate energy while drawing cards, and then we've got Wellspring Mask Ogerpon, which can both use Torrential Pump, do 100 to the active, 120 to the bench, or just use Sob Lock as people call it, 20 damage, plus you stick them in the active because they can't retreat. And then we also play it with Pikachu, and jobs are good 'un. Like, Clefairy is really good in those decks, but we're not playing a Lily deck. We're not playing it with Lily's Rabombi, for instance, where we're making our opponent bench all of their Pokemon and then smashing for huge damage. That's not happening. Sorry about that. So Lily's Clefairy, the best of them, but it's not a Lily's deck per se. The other one that is seeing a little bit of play here is Hops, like Hop Zacian. But again, we're not really talking about Hop Zacian as a deck. What we're really talking about here is Archaludon. And Archaludon, very, very, very good deck right now. Seeing a rather large amount of play, people are loving this deck. But it's an Archaludon deck. Now, we do see a little bit of Hop stuff played in there. Hop's Double is often played in here, and actually that's played in a bunch of decks, because obviously it's gusting. You get to drag one of your opponent's bench Pokemon into the active when you evolve. Doesn't have to be a Hops deck, so for that reason, yeah, that's seeing a huge amount of play. But basically where we're seeing this, we've got Hop Snorlax doing a little bit of extra damage, and we've got Hop Zacian doing decent damage for fairly low energy, and then obviously we've got Hop's Cramorant here, which if your opponent's got 3 or 4 prize cards remaining, you deal 120 damage. And that's clearly brilliant. But this is a little bit of a package that we see popped in here. This is something that we pop in as a, hey, here's another option, let's play around with this. It is not what we see as the key part of the deck. Far more often right now over in Japan, what we're actually seeing is the Poison Suite. This is what we saw win the European International Championships there just a couple of weeks ago, where you use your Brute Bonnet to poison, and then you use the Pecharunt promo to go into the active to do extra damage from poison, and then we also now use Dangerous Jungle. And the reason we use that is because we don't have Radiant Hisuian Sneasler anymore, so we need another way to up the amount of damage we're doing with poison, because otherwise with Petulant you're only actually doing 60 with poison. You need to get to at least 70. So Perilous Jungle says that you do an extra 2 damage counters for poison. That gets you up to 8, and there you go. That is actually seeing a lot of play right now with Duraludon. Gives you an early game. Essentially, you muck around with that in the early game while you're setting up, and then Archaludon comes in a little bit later to smash when you're already kind of taking a couple cheeky early prizes. It's cool, frankly. It works very nicely indeed. And that basically just leaves Hop and the Hop stuff as kind of a nice little bonus, an extra trick, something you can play around with, but not something that is absolutely essential. And I think that's kind of the point here. It's lovely, it's a fun little bonus, but it's not actually something you have to play around with. Yes, there is a deck where you use Zacian, and you play stuff like Hop Snorlax and all of that, and you do decent damage and have fun, but honestly, it's just not seeing a lot of play and success over in Japan right now. And that's kind of my point. It is out there, but it's just a fringe deck. And we can say a very similar kind of thing for Zoroark. Zoroark is also out there as a bit of a fringe deck. It's not doing great, I'll be honest with you, but it is there as a fringe deck. The lovely Pokecard book over on Twitter keeps collecting this, and you'll see Zoroark hovering around 3 to 4% of the meta, 3 to 4% of the top 16s that have been gained. And honestly, there's a strong argument here that in terms of their own decks, N is the best of them. Like, Lily's Clefairy is seeing the most play, but not in Lily decks. And Hop Zacian decks are really not doing very well compared to Hop Zacian popping up in Archaludon. And as I've told you, Archaludon itself isn't really doing phenomenally. It's fine, but it's not exactly setting the world on fire. And Zoroark might be the best pure deck here if we're looking at trainers Pokemon. Now, the way it essentially works is you've got Zoroark, which has a great ability, lets you discard a card from your hand to draw 2 cards, and then for 2 energy, you copy one of your benched Pokemon's attacks. And the main one you're going after here, your main goal is Darmanitan. Essentially, Darmanitan's attack, great. It's just way too expensive to actually use consistently. So we don't. We copy it. And that makes it way easier. And we do have Ends PP up, of course, which will accelerate an energy to one of your Ends Pokemon, which is also going to help rather nicely indeed. Makes that 2 energy attack essentially a single energy attack, which is important because Darmanitan does have 2 energy, 30 for each basic energy card in your opponent's discard pile. But your every turn kind of attack is going to be Flame Body Cannon, 90 damage plus 90 to the bench, but you have to discard all energy from this Pokemon to do it. But it should be a pretty easy turn 2 attack. You need 2 energy and 2 stage 1s, and you've got the draw engine on Zoroark to help. This should not be particularly difficult, and especially if you go first, you just need to get a Zorua and a Darumaka down, maybe an energy. You can't use Enter PP up if you miss an energy turn 1. And then you've got this rolling turn 2, and you're doing this before your opponent's even evolved. You then do add in 1 copy, it usually is just a one-off, but you add in a copy of En's Reshiram here, and that's got a rather nice attack. It does 20 damage for each damage counter on the Pokemon, or just a flat 170, and actually, yeah, there's potential here. But again, we are talking about a fringe deck. We are not talking about some kind of phenomenal Uber deck. Like, take this collection of 63 events that happened over in Japan between the 3rd and the 9th of March, and you'll notice there, Zoroark is, well, sitting there at 3.3% of the meta. Miles behind things like Archaludon and that Clefairy deck, But again, that Clefairy deck is playing a one-off Clefairy most of the time, and Archaludon is generally not even playing the hop stuff. They're usually playing the poison package I showed you. So like I say, in terms of their own deck, yes, Zoroark is the best among them. N is winning in that regard. But it's not exactly a phenomenal deck now, is it? So what about Iono? Iono is out there. Iono is around. But it's the weakest of them. And there is a deck here. Essentially, the way the deck works is using Bellibolt to accelerate a bunch of energy. You've got Killer Wattrel to draw just a whole bunch of cards. And you've even got your single prize Voltorb here, which can deal damage based on how many energy you've got on all lightning energy on all of your Iono's Pokemon. So it's a nice single prize attacker in that regard. It's 20 damage plus 20 for each lightning energy on all of your Iono's Pokemon. And look, there's clearly a little bit of potential here, but the reality is we've got quite a lot of data coming out of Japan, and it's just not doing very well right now. And I'm sorry. There's plenty of them out and about, but they're just not doing particularly big numbers. And honestly, here's why Iono is very disappointing. Because the vast majority of them aren't actually Iono's deck. There are some around that's just basically Bellibolt, Killer Wattrel, and Voltorb. Essentially, those three Pokemon are the deck. But the vast majority of Iono's decks are actually Raging Bolt decks. And what you're really doing here is using Iono's Bellibolt to accelerate as much lightning energy as you like to your other Iono's Pokemon. That's the ability, that's what it does. But then as you do that, you can then use Raging Bolt to discard that energy and do massive damage. Here's the problem with that. Raging Bolt is a top deck right now. Like a proper job. Top deck right now. If I take you back to that metagame I showed you just a second ago, you'll notice that Raging Bolt is actually sitting there at 8% of the meta. It is absolutely viable and legit. So why have I not been telling you about Iono's Bellibolt as the best among them? Because these decks generally aren't playing Iono's Bellibolt. Raging Bolt decks, the vast majority of successful Raging Bolt decks in Japan, they're still playing it with Teal Mask Ogapon. They're not playing the Bellibolt variation of the deck. And this is my big problem with the Iono's Pokemon. If even the best way to play it is the second best, the best way to play it is Raging Bolt, but it's the second best way to play Raging Bolt. That kind of tells you what you need to know. So look, Lily's Clefairy, absolutely legit, but not in Lily's Clefairy decks. Hop, Zacian, and Snorlax, pretty good, but just not really in Hop, Zacian decks. They're generally in Archaludon decks. N's decks are the best among them in terms of being their own deck, but that doesn't say very much. Like I say, we're talking 3-4% of the meta. That's what we're generally seeing most of the time. And yeah, then we end up with Iono, who isn't doing as well. There we go. I think that's a nice way to put it. For now, I want to know what you think about all of this. I want to know what you think about the trainers Pokemon. I want to know if you think you can do better. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Good us. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. And get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Tamberlin, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout-out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.